Welcome to Little English Studio, where we bring history to life through stories that are easy to understand, engaging to follow, and unforgettable to hear. Today, we take you on a journey into the life of one of the most iconic figures in modern history, John Fitzgerald Kennedy. From a privileged childhood to the world stage of politics, from moments of hope to a tragedy that shocked the world, this is the story of the 35th President of the United States, told like never before. John Fitzgerald Kennedy was born on May 29, 1917, in Brookline, Massachusetts, into one of America's wealthiest and most influential families. His father, Joseph P. Kennedy, was a successful businessman and politician, while his mother, Rose Fitzgerald Kennedy, came from a politically connected Boston family. John was the second of 9 children, growing up in a household where competition, achievement, and ambition were everyday expectations. The Kennedys lived in a world of privilege. Spacious homes, private schools, and summers in Cape Cod. Yet, behind the image of perfection, there was pressure. Joseph Kennedy Sr. believed that each child was destined to achieve greatness, and he pushed them relentlessly towards success. For young John, often called Jack by his family, this pressure came with unique challenges. He suffered from various illnesses during his childhood, including scarlet fever and chronic back problems, conditions that would trouble him for the rest of his life. Still, Jack was curious, witty, and intelligent. His early schooling at Choate, an elite preparatory school, was marked by both mischief and achievement. While he was not always the most disciplined student, his charm and sharp mind made him popular among classmates and teachers alike. In 1936, Kennedy entered Harvard University. Initially more interested in sports and social life than academics, he eventually developed a passion for history and politics. His senior thesis, a detailed examination of Britain's unpreparedness for World War II, was so well received that it was later published as a book titled Why England Slept. Graduating in 1940, Jack seemed poised to follow in his father's footsteps into public service. However, the world was changing rapidly. Europe was engulfed in war, and the United States was moving closer to involvement. Kennedy's sense of duty, along with his adventurous spirit, led him to the military. In 1941, Kennedy joined the U.S. Navy. By 1943, he was commanding PT-109, a patrol torpedo boat in the Pacific. One night in August, a Japanese destroyer rammed and sank his vessel. Despite his own severe back injury, Kennedy swam for miles, towing a wounded crew member to safety. For his leadership and bravery, he was awarded the Navy and Marine Corps Medal and the Purple Heart. The story of PT-109 became national news and cemented Kennedy's reputation as a war hero. But his health continued to deteriorate, and by the end of the war, he was discharged. Though physically weakened, Kennedy returned home with a renewed sense of purpose. Encouraged by his father, Kennedy entered politics in 1946, running for Congress in Massachusetts' 11th District. His charm, family connections, and war record helped him win easily. After 3 terms in the House of Representatives, he set his sights higher. In 1952, he successfully ran for the U.S. Senate, defeating the popular Republican incumbent Henry Cabot Lodge Jr. It was during his Senate years that Kennedy's personal life took a turn. In 1953, he married Jacqueline Bouvier, a sophisticated journalist and socialite. The glamorous couple became media darlings, embodying a youthful, modern vision of American politics. Yet behind the scenes, Kennedy's health problems persisted, and he underwent multiple surgeries to address his chronic back pain. Kennedy's ambition did not stop at the Senate. By 1960, he had set his sights on the presidency. At 43 years old, he was young, charismatic, and a fresh alternative to the political establishment. Running against Republican Vice President Richard Nixon, Kennedy faced a tough campaign in which religion became a major issue. He would be the first Catholic president if elected. The 1960 presidential debates, the first ever televised, played a crucial role. Kennedy appeared confident, composed, and photogenic, while Nixon, recovering from illness, looked pale and tense. Millions of Americans watching on television felt Kennedy had won the debates, while radio listeners thought the contest was even. On November 8, 1960, Kennedy won the presidency by one of the narrowest margins in U.S. history. At 43, he became the youngest elected president and the first Catholic to hold the office. Kennedy's presidency began with his inspiring inauguration speech on January 20, 1961, in which he famously urged Americans, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." His administration, often referred to as Camelot, was marked by optimism, cultural sophistication, and bold initiatives. Domestically, Kennedy pushed for civil rights, education reform, and the space program, famously declaring the goal of landing a man on the moon before the decade's end. Internationally, he faced Cold War challenges, including the failed Bay of Pigs invasion in Cuba in 1961, which aimed to overthrow Fidel Castro but ended in disaster. In October 1962, U.S. reconnaissance discovered Soviet nuclear missiles being installed in Cuba, just 90 miles from American shores. For 13 tense days, the world stood on the brink of nuclear war. Kennedy chose a naval blockade over direct military action, demanding the removal of the missiles. Through careful negotiation with Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev, the crisis was resolved peacefully. The Soviets agreed to remove the missiles in exchange for a U.S. promise not to invade Cuba and a secret agreement to remove American missiles from Turkey. Kennedy's handling of the crisis was widely praised and marked a high point of his presidency. On November 22, 1963, Kennedy was visiting Dallas, Texas, as part of a political tour. Riding in an open-top motorcade with Jacqueline beside him, he waved to cheering crowds as the car drove through Dealey Plaza. Suddenly, gunshots rang out. Kennedy was struck twice, once in the upper back and fatally in the head. He was rushed to Parkland Memorial Hospital but pronounced dead at 1 p.m. Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson, riding 2 cars behind, was sworn in as president aboard Air Force One just hours later, with a grief-stricken Jacqueline by his side. Lee Harvey Oswald was arrested for the assassination, but before he could stand trial, he was shot and killed by nightclub owner Jack Ruby on live television. The Warren Commission later concluded that Oswald acted alone, though debates and conspiracy theories have persisted for decades. Kennedy's life was cut short at just 46 years old, but his impact endures. He is remembered for his vision, his eloquence, and his belief in public service. His presidency inspired a generation to participate in politics, serve their country, and believe in the power of collective action. From his leadership during the Cuban Missile Crisis to his commitment to civil rights and the space race, Kennedy's legacy is one of courage and hope. His tragic death turned him into a symbol of lost potential, but also cemented his place as one of America's most beloved leaders. Thank you for joining us on this journey through history. John F. Kennedy's life reminds us that leadership is not just about power, but about vision, courage, and service to others. Here at Little English Studio, we believe history is best told through stories that inspire and teach. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss the next story. Until then, keep learning, keep dreaming, and keep exploring the world through the power of English and history.